Okay, this is going to be a quick video on how the upper tension assembly works on a Singer 201-2 sewing machine. Obviously, when you lift this lever in the back, we've got parts in here moving against the spring. There's a pin that comes through to loosen these discs so you can pull your thread through, and then when you drop it back down, it will put pressure on the thread. You can adjust it here. I generally run between a 4 and a 5 on the pressure here. Just checking the camera. Okay, the way this goes together, if you want to take this apart, if you're having problems with it or something isn't adjusted right, to take it apart I'm going to turn it to 1 and push this in and take this thumb screw off. You can see there's a little pin on there. Then you've got this indicator dial with a bunch of holes in it. The next part is this washer with this index finger. The purpose of that finger is so when you come back to 0, it's going to hit this little tab inside here. Now bear in mind I can't see what I'm recording, so I'm just trying to hold it in front of the lens in this position. Then you've got this spring. Another indicator disc, plus and minus. Then you've got this disc with this pin that goes, this registration pin goes into that hole on the casting. And these 3 pieces will come off all together. They're not hooked together, it's just you can pull them off like this in one bunch. Okay, this is your check spring or take-up spring. And then you've got these, if you're going to take this all apart and clean it, clean all these parts, and when you look at the back where the writing is, call that the back and call that the face. That way when you put this back together, you just go face to face. Your thread drops in there. If you do something like this, that's not going to work. So just remember face to face when you put it back together. And this check spring has a little notch in the back. You can put that notch into different areas, slots on this pin. Okay, and depending on, let's say you're weak, if your spring's getting a little tired, just hike it up a little bit like this. Okay, if your spring is in good condition and you slide this on, if it's pointing down like that, there should be plenty of tension there. The spring is actually good enough. I can go right here and it's going to pull it back plenty hard enough. And there's also the pin that's pushing through the casting and this little tab here. If you take this, a lot of this apart, or tip the machine and that falls out, just keep an eye out for that. You don't want that to fall out. You're going to lose it, and then you're going to be trying to fabricate a pin, or you'll be on eBay buying yourself a new pin if you can find one. Okay, so the lever's down. I'll get the pin back in. The way I like to put this back together is I like to take my 2 discs, put them face to face. This disc goes over. Just have that indicator, kind of like you're layering a cake here, have that indicator pin up, put on that disc, this disc, they're face to face. Put it between your thumb and your forefinger. Go ahead and take this spring and put it just like this. So that little notch is towards the top. Work it on. You're gonna notice the spring is pointed down here. The little notch is gonna go into one of those little areas on the pin, like this. And then just lift it up like that. Okay, now you can hold this and see it's working. Alright, the next piece we want to put on is this indicator here, plus and minus. Slide that on. The next piece is the spring. The next piece is this washer. You'll see the way this finger points out. You want that pointing out like that, because that is going to hit that little notch inside here when you get to 0. So when you put this on, make sure you're at like 1, so you're beyond the little notch. And this is probably where my hand's going to block the shot. Start screwing this on. Hold in on this a little bit. Work it in and just set it into one of the holes like that, okay? That's your starting point. Because when you have this down, you need a starting point. I'm going to run that in just to tighten it. And I can tell there's still pressure on here. So I'm going to push this in and back it off just a little bit. Get it back into one of the holes like that. Get it back into the one holes. I want it to go to 9 without pushing too hard. But when I bring it back to 0, I want it to be, I don't want any pressure there. Just going to throw some thread through here. Okay, I can feel there's still pressure. So I've got to push this in and move it over another hole. Just go one at a time. Turn it back to 0. Okay, that's pulling pretty easy. Now just turn up this dial to see. Okay, 4's pretty hard, 5's a little harder. But when I go to 0, it really takes nothing to pull that through. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Maybe back off one more. You don't want to back off too far here. Otherwise, if you back off this screw off too much, what'll happen is this doesn't have any pressure on it, and you could jump that little notch inside the dial. So we better call this good. I don't feel any pressure. If I did go one more hole, it would put me about there, and then I can feel a little bit of resistance. So that's kind of personal preference there, but as long as you still have a little bit of pressure on here, you should be in good shape. Alright, that's it.